Welcome back to Weekend Live. It's been revealed 80% of Australians have made changes to their purchasing habits to combat the rising cost of living. That's according to research by the Trade Desk and YouGov. Joining us live now is Chi Lo, a director of the Trade Desk. Chi Lo, thanks so much for your time this afternoon. What changes are most Australians making?
Thanks for having me, Gabriella. As you mentioned before, just 8 in 10 Aussies have already changed purchasing habits, and 66% actually are just generally purchasing less in general. If I can summarise, I think there's just immense uncertainty amongst consumers in an environment where it's just really hard to predict what's going to happen next from a financial standpoint.
Absolutely. We're all feeling the pinch when it comes to filling up the car, at the shopping at the supermarket. Looking at the research that the Trade Desk and YouGov has conducted, what surprised you?
I think particularly just discretionary spending is being impacted at a time when you think that the world should be opening up, when you think that this is a time when perhaps we are able to put COVID behind us and increase discretionary spending. We're feeling pressures on our own household spending. In fact, the survey revealed that 50% of persons were putting holiday plans on hold and discretionary purchases as a whole, which is an astounding number just given we've been through a lot. And I think a lot of people have probably spent a lot of time planning their purchases. So having half of those since changed their mind due to inflationary pressures is just really surprising.
Yeah, it's been a tough couple of years, that's for sure. And it looks like the cost of living is only going to go up. Looking at the study, is it mostly families and parents cutting down costs, or is it happening right across the board?
It's happening across the board. I think particularly surprisingly in the study, sectors such as Millennials and Gen Z or Z are additionally impacted as well as families. And if you think about it, these costs are really something that every single person partakes in. You mentioned fuel before. Sure, families will always have costs, but that's not to mention that the young people of Australia are still facing this certain uncertainty that everyone else is.
So more of us are choosing home brands at the supermarket as opposed to premium brands. Do you think that's a trend that will stay around?
I think it's a trend kind of driven by just price consciousness. It's a trend so much, probably more so driven by just individuals realising that they are facing a period when they don't have to display as much loyalty as they used to particular brands. And it kind of makes sense. In a realm of uncertainty, particularly in things like financial markets, you're typically looking for the best price at the supermarket, not for the brands that you previously loved. I do think this is a trend that will probably stick around, particularly as the future probably plays out in the next few years.
You mentioned brand loyalty. How can companies try and maintain brand loyalty when most people are trying to choose the cheapest item on the shelf?
That's a great question. The Trade Desk in particular helps advertisers reach consumers. What we're finding is essentially that, to be honest, financial uncertainty is hitting advertisers too. And they're having to be a little bit more picky with their brand advertising. But essentially, any brand that keeps the consumer's interests at its heart, at its core, and savvy brands, if anything, are taking this opportunity to win over fresh consumer loyalty that perhaps wasn't there before. But realistically, we're looking at a place where advertisers just need to be really agile in the way that they treat how they talk to consumers, and respectful too.
And it's a challenge for companies because brands are forced to put up their prices due to inflation and supply chain issues, but less of us are willing to pay for premium products. What can companies do to address this?
I think companies just have to remain connected to the consumer and understand what the consumer wants from them, not only from an advertising perspective, but an advertiser should probably do their best to not pass on cost to consumers. That will probably be impossible for some brands, in which case it's probably being just respectful of what the consumer wants and just attempting to probably delay that for as long as possible.
Chi Lo, Director of the Trade Desk, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, Gabriella.